Let's get into the hearings first to start off, because yesterday's hearings, actually aptly timed with the release of your book, gave us a lot of the warnings you've made throughout in this book, but also your previous books, about the threat posed by white nationalists and extremist groups, specifically to American democracy. Lay that out for us.
Yeah, well, as a terrorism expert, I usually remove phrases like Muslim or Christian or Catholic or white, but I'm talking about extremists. Most extremists have an ideology that they're following. But here in the United States, to characterize that, to understand just what kind of terrorism we might be dealing with, you have to actually label it according to what as white extremism, because we have 30% of the population of the United States who no longer believe in the democratic norms that were established at the founding of the country. Let's just be honest about that. The January 6th uprising was an attempt to overthrow American democracy. And we've now learned from these hearings that Donald Trump intended to go there and march down to the well of the House of Representatives and essentially be crowned as a king. And that shows that American democracy is not just fragile. American democracy is under direct and immediate attack by people who would see 245 years of democratic governance destroyed, not just destroyed, transformed back into the very monarchic style government or totalitarian government that we rebelled against with King George III. So that being said, American democracy is under siege right now. And having these hearings really brings that out. The problem is about 60% of the American public are not listening or paying attention at all. And another third, that 30% we keep talking about, they view all of this as a lessons learned on how to do it correctly next time.
And you call what's happening an insurgency. We've heard that term in foreign wars recently in Iraq. But talk about why you apply the term insurgency to what you see here as a persistent and ongoing threat of these domestic extremists.
Right. Well, I called this on November 6, 2020, when I was on Real Time with Bill Maher. And Bill, to his credit, was trying to say, we have to do kumbaya. We have to bring the Republicans along, try to, convince the Trump voters that, that America needs to reunite. And I took a very pessimistic view towards that, principally because I was reading their forums. I was reading their own intelligence about what they intended to do. And it was pretty clear by that point that they were going to try to either overthrow the government or that they were going to settle in for a long-term series of destabilizing actions using a political party, the Republican Party, as their political basis, and then using violence, threat of violence and extremism as the way to manifest change in the street, right? So remove politics from the halls of power and change politics through violence on the street. This is called an insurgency. And the insurrection, which happened on January 6th, that was one event. An insurgency is a chain of events. And it's common knowledge. A year and a half ago, when I was calling this an insurgency, people were actually saying, that's crazy. This is not an insurgency. This is not like Iraq. This is not like Libya. It's not like Syria. Well, it is. And it's well on its way. It's closer to the beginnings of the Irish Republican Army, Irish Republicanism, where now the Republican Party is Sinn Féin. And it's just a matter of seeing who comes up as the provisional Irish Republicans in this story and starts carrying out acts of violence in order to effect change. So we are well on to our way to a multi-year campaign. That we're already 2 years into this campaign where may have to fight the they in my title, and the they in my title who want to kill Americans are your neighbors.
That is a very scary thought, but it is a very important conversation to have, given the fact that we are post-insurrection, as we've been saying all show long. My good friend, Malcolm Nance, it was great to see you safe and home. Thank you so much for being here. He is the author of the brand new book, They Want to Kill Americans, The Malicious, Terrorist, and Deranged Ideology, the Trump Insurgency. Definitely pick that up. Highly recommend. Thank you again, Malcolm. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.